seen some people that do it as a picture file. But then, of course, you've still got to have the HTML. You've got to have some, and they'll pick that up too. Because they're just looking at the source code.
System Explorer.
I get a lot of stuff. I know it's stuck on me.
Years ago,
so, I don't know. I mean, they filter it really well, but look at, you know, there'd be maybe a weekend with the email spam on things.
I'm not sure how they're getting it here.
Yeah.
I'm assuming something else is going on.
Well, I've seen spam things for universities with certain accounts. Just, you know, you look down at the very end and it'll be Columbia or something like that at the end. Yeah, or what you use it the second time. The next year you got to yeah, you just see that, you know, some photo place or film place giving you a make start. The library refused to do it.
this one. We'll get back to that in a moment. Our ratings just went down. This one? Test, test, test. All right, thanks everyone for coming today, especially since it's like the last session. I know a lot of people are racing for the train or the plane. My name is Francis Chin. I'm the Director of Administrative Computing at Brooklyn Law School. Hi, I'm Phil Allred. I'm the Chief Information Officer at Brooklyn Law School. And we're going to talk about MacGyver computing. Just to give you a little background, Brooklyn Law School has 1,200 full-time students and 300 part-time students. We're a private, independent law school in downtown Brooklyn. And so our milieu is just a little different than many law schools. Many of the services that other schools depend on, the central IT function to provide, we provide. And so we always feel just a little strapped. And so this presentation is on how to be resourceful, how to think about being resourceful, and a few examples we've come up with, and hopefully a little time at the end left for discussion on resourcefulness in general in IT offices. And everything up here actually did happen. First of all, how many people are actual MacGyver fans? Raise your hand. Did anybody see that the clip that we showed at the beginning was from the pilot episode of MacGyver? And one of the trivia facts, did you see MacGyver with a gun running away with the guy he was supposed to rescue? Apparently that's the only time he actually shot at anybody in the entire seven seasons. He has a total fear of guns. Times have changed. So the series from 1985 to 92, it was 7 seasons. He started out as a secret agent for the United States government for some obscure Department of External Operations, and then he became a member of the Phoenix Foundation. If you're not familiar with MacGyver, the whole premise of MacGyver is about a secret agent that that avoids violence. Well, he does both of things a lot in his different appearances, but he never actually hurts anybody. He prefers to do things using his brain rather than his brawn. Okay. I'm not going to read that up there. His first name really is Angus. That's not reviewed until the last episode of the 7th season because he really hates his first name. Everybody calls him MacGyver. The pertinent points up there is that he was it's developed through the seasons that his father died early in his childhood, and in college he received he had a professor that served as his mentor and provided all of his interest in science, and is provided sort of an environment that allowed him to use his creativity along with his skills in science to accomplish things. Later on, he was discovered by Peter Thornton, which was his boss through all 7 seasons. He was sort of his scouting agent for the secret services, and he brought him on board because he saw that he was like a one-man team. Later on, he went off to this private foundation that they don't really get into too much detail about, but he brings them along. And all through the 7 seasons, all through the show, Peter Thornton acts as his sort of surrogate father figure. And also, there's several themes where that MacGyver acts as a surrogate father to other people. He's a big brother. He helps out other people. It's sort of this running, that we do right, do-gooder mystique that he has about him. And he doesn't use guns. He had a childhood thing. A childhood friend died playing with a gun, and so he avoids using a gun, except for that first episode, which the continuity editor sort of this. So his pros are that he has this magical skills in improvisation. He takes the scientific know-how and actually applies it to the thing at hand. And he's like the original thinking out of the box guy. So the cons about this are that he kind of relies on his abilities. He doesn't really have a team. He has people that are supporting him, but they can't really do anything to help him out, really. So like he has to like find his own paper clips and duct tape himself. Left to his own devices, he really wanted to be a hockey player. He really did not want to. He did not really think he was going to be a secret agent or anything like that. And so that's like one of those things where he could have, he has this, sort of that feeling down deep that he, could have been something else. If something was just a little different.
Not that that applies to us.
Yeah. And so I guess in a way that it maybe sort of kind of pigeonholed in the secret agent role. MacGyver, even though the show ended years and years ago, it still has a great effect on many people. A lot of the people who watched the show, in their teens, like I did, grew interested in science, and then those same people end up being those people in the .com era where they just sort of kind of just throw things together and see what sticks, and burns the midnight oil, to get things done. And that kind of culture, I think, has a source from MacGyver. In some parts of the world, especially in Asia and South America, a Swiss Army knife is known as a MacGyver knife, because they just seen so many of these episodes, and they have no idea that the knife is Swiss. And it's inspired some reality shows like The Amazing Race, Man vs. Wild, and Mythbusters. Mythbusters is sort of like a self-referential MacGyver, because they do all these experiments, and they try to see if things will work or won't work. And then in the past season they had an episode just about trying to see if the stuff in MacGyver actually does work, and the vast majority of them did actually work. Some of them had to be some of the stuff that was on the series were dumbed down so that people wouldn't actually accidentally blow themselves up trying to do the same things at home. Okay, so what does that have to do with being in IT or being involved with working in a law school? I think there's two themes really. There's one. The first theme has to do with having an environment of improvisation. Franz Johansson, in his book The Medici Effect, talked about how the Medicis in Italy, in Florence, used their wealth to bring together people from various disciplines to, in the short term, just to get things done. I needed this chapel painted. I need a piece of work of art in my house. I need the wall painted. And then these people with all these different skills were all brought together in the same environment, and they were able to take advantage of this intermeshing of disciplines and seeing what other people are doing, and that helped bring about the Renaissance. By the way, he's great. If you want to read the book is free on his website. The website's on the slides. Oh, by the way, the slides are uploaded on the website, so don't take notes or anything like that. Just download the slides.
Just watch the show.
Just watch the show. Enjoy yourselves. But I like authors like this that put their book up. They still encourage you to buy it, and I ordered a copy on Amazon myself. But you can download the book right now from his website for free. Stephen Covey, he's another famed motivational author, has a whole series of videos. This particular video is called Leading by Example, and he talks about a leadership pyramid. And the thing I want to focus on is the second item in his pyramid about mentoring, and that how to create a mentoring relationship, in the same way that MacGyver had with with his mentors and the people that he mentored all through the season, all through the series. Those are like two themes that are like really important, are really important to foster this environment where a MacGyver can succeed. Okay, so now here's the real life part. In the description we outlined several different things that we had to tackle. Several different things, problems we had to take care of. But these all happened in an emergency. We did not plan for these things to happen, and we had to deal with it. And so Phil is going to talk about how we shot lasers off the top of our law school.
Yeah, this was really not, this particular one was not a response to an emergency, unlike maybe some of the other things. This was a calculated thing, but it did have some of that need for creative thinking involved in it, because we're a downtown law school, and in New York City, the road that passes between our two buildings is the access road to the Brooklyn Bridge. And as you might imagine, it's very busy. And it's a big emergency route as well. During September 11th, a bunch of response traffic came up and down the road, and they limited access to it. So that's between some of our buildings. And when I got there 7 years ago, the only connection between the two buildings was a tie line underneath the road of Cat 3 cables. And there was really no way for us to pull our own fiber. We don't own the road. It's not a campus. We could go to somebody else, but think about what it was like 7 or 8 years ago and the expense that would have been in New York City to hire somebody to tear up the road. Harder yet, find anybody who had fiber in the neighborhood. Nobody did it in Brooklyn at that time. So what do? I ended up being in a meeting with the administrative deans discussing the need for something faster, because we were getting ready for a major rollout of an upgrade of our administrative system. And 10 megabits a second over Cat 3 wasn't going to cut it. And just out of frustration, thinking about it, one of the deans said, can't we do something like, can't you shoot lasers between roofs? And I thought, why couldn't you? I had never heard of such a thing, but as it turned out, that was a new product on the market at the time. And the market was called Free Space Optics. This is the road between the buildings.
This is our main building. Okay.
The market was called Free Space Optics, and these heads were new. And at the time, they were pretty expensive, but they were capable of gigabit speed. And unlike wireless, you don't compete in the bandwidth space with anybody else. It's just a straight shot between your two repeaters. So the only thing we compete with are pigeons and fog and the sun, as it turns out. It worked great, 99.x% of the time. The problem was, at this very time of the year, when the sun is at the highest in the sky, at sunset, it would go behind one of the heads, right behind it. And Francis kept telling me, the network goes down every day at 5:45. What's going on? And nobody else,
clockwork or something.
Nobody else complained about it. Nobody, because at 5:45 they'd all cleared out. And I thought, Francis is just doing something on his machine. And there were a couple other on the staff that were doing things, and they also had experienced it. And so finally, he cornered me one day and said, "There's something going on here." So we went up to the roofs, and sure enough, there was the sun, big disc right behind. So we had a signal-to-noise ratio problem. Lasers will shoot twice the distance of the visible eye as a rough measure. So in a fog, if you can see 20 feet, the laser will cut through 40 feet of that fog. That's a rough rule of thumb. Our buildings are really close together. You could throw a rock between them, literally. So,
but being New York, we get pretty much anything, any weather you could come up with.
Yeah, and so weather is a little tougher to solve, but even the weather has turned out not to be a problem. You'll see why in a minute here. So there's half of the first pair. There's the other side of the first pair. Let me go back. This one is on the top of building that was donated to the school by Republic National Bank before they became HSBC, and much of the administration is in it. The other is on the top of a 13-story building, and that's why you see the head pointing down there. Once, the first winter we had it, it was really cold, and the coldest night of the year, and it had come out of alignment. And we could not figure out what was wrong, and it was getting late at night. In fact, it was midnight. I was up on the other side, and I went up on the roof, and I could see that something about the cold had caused something to shift. And so I took off my gloves to put them down. It was a windy night, and I only wanted them off for a second because to fine-tune it, because there were some fine-tuning adjustments on it. And a big gust went, whoosh, and there goes my glove over the parapet. So the solution to the signal-to-noise ratio problem was 3 pair of laser heads arranged in a triangle. And it just happened that the school was building a new 23-story residence hall, and it needed network service, of course. And so you see up there the little thing sticking out the top of the parapet. There's a couple of them you see, and there are different things happening right now up there on that building. But one of those is the other end of that laser. So, and this is another laser on that tall building shooting back at our administration building. So in effect, we have a triangle like this. You see 2 buildings there by the red line, and at the point of the blue lines, you see a parking lot. That's because to this day, when you go on Google, our 23-story building still hasn't appeared in their satellite photos yet. So we used rapid spanning tree protocol so that when you put your hand up there in front of any one of the links, it just goes the other direction around the link. And so it's worked great, and that, of course, solved the sunset behind one head problem. So this was a while ago. I mean, this is old news, really. Lasers have been around quite a while now. So what about today? What would some similar creative thinking produce? Well, you would get more reliability today because you can combine wireless and wired. In fact, you can get gigabit radio now. It suffers from other set drawbacks, but if you combine the two, you really have a pretty reliable solution, I think. And because of some work we were doing on other residence halls, we've discovered that 10 gig radio is just around the corner, according to our vendor. And I jumped out there to the internet to see if any products are out. There are no 10 gig radio products yet, but there's a lot of kind of news announcements about early research proving its capability. I found 2 last night just in kind of casual browsing that happened back in 2005, and so I can see why they would be about ready for the market now. So that's my little gig about this. All the rest of the creative stuff was done by him, so I'll turn the remote control back over to Francis.
Our second do-it-yourself project has to do with connecting up our student information system to our website. We use DataTell as our student information system. Say circa like 2003 or even before that. DataTell is a very closed system. It does a lot of good things, but it doesn't really it's not really very friendly in terms of when you try to access things outside of the interfaces that they provide. They use a database that's provided by IBM called Unidata. Let's put it this way: Unidata is like circa 1960s technology. It's not a relational database, so it's that old, and that's scary. But they use it.
And I might jump in and add that that's why they created they were forced to create some of their own interfaces. And of course now you can, there are other alternatives. You can run Oracle underneath DataTell. You can run SQL Server under DataTell. But most DataTell shops are still Unidata to this day, although when you attend their sessions, the crowded ones are the SQL Server sessions.
Okay, so they had no official way of getting to any of this data, short of doing exports and using common limited files, like Ben showed me at the session yesterday. So we had to come up with something, and that's what's great about conferences like CALI. I went to a conference similar to this. There's a user group for DataTell users, and someone from University of New Hampshire, Jeff Butera, did a presentation where he created an interface, an API for accessing DataTell through the Unidata database, which he's like sort of generically called the wrapper. And that provided an interface that we can actually make calls either using C or using C, which we turn into a command line program. And then we have this command line program that we can now call using PHP or Perl. And that allows us to actually make calls to predefined subroutines that we limit what can be executed on the database, and that allows us to secure access to data. So we solved a number of things, including like our online application. We wrote our own online application to the law school. We took some other pieces, some other libraries from PHP and Perl to generate PDFs, and so like we hooked up the PDF to data that we pull from the wrapper and generate PDFs from there. And we do the same thing with scene shots. I'm going to demo a few things very quickly. So this is our Facebook. The pictures are living on our website, but all the other information comes from DataTell, and we're able to access the people and what their information through there. In addition, this is more oriented to our professors. We offer rosters to like different classes. We can offer a photo roster to, this is accounting for lawyers with Professor Hoffman, who is our tax professor, specialist in tax and accounting. And this is all generated on the fly from the information from DataTell, and then it generates this PDF which you can save and or click on. We had a second problem. We had like traditional seating charts with basically big, large pieces of paper with squares on them. That people are supposed to write their names in. Some professors wanted the people's pictures in the seating chart, and so they had the secretaries take apart like our traditional Facebook, which was actually a printed booklet that was printed every year. They would like cannibalize 2 or 3. The secretaries would cannibalize 2 or 3 of them per class, cut out the pictures, slap them on the pieces of paper. We wanted to do something to save them the effort, but we didn't want to go into like advanced like 3-dimensional graphics and like keeping track of like the room configurations.
Dragging and dropping pictures was beyond our resources, I'm afraid.
Right. So what we came up with instead were seating chart labels. So we have using the same PDF stuff, using the same printing the wrapper stuff plus the PDF stuff. We formatted the pictures in this format, which happens to be exactly this format for Avery mailing labels printed on the side. And so each one of these pictures will print on an individual mailing label. Then you can peel off the labels, you slap them on the seating chart, and the secretaries are ecstatic that they don't have to turn this into an arts and crafts project.
So we gave them each a little Swiss pocket knife, and they just cut out the picture, and
Okay, and then the third thing that we came up with was this emailer, which again takes the information about the class, feeds the list of people here, and the professors can send a message to professors. So, okay, back to the slideshow. So now DataTell has come, have sort of seen the line and realized that they have to make themselves a little more open, whatever that they want to define open, and so they provide some APIs, and they also provide some other products that they encourage us to strongly encourage. AKA, we really ought to get to it if we want to have everything else to work with their products. So we bought things like FRX, which is like sort of an accounting, like data warehousing system / reporting system. Orchestrator provides a API, which also a reporting system, warehousing system that both based on SQL Server, and people report on near real time based on the stuff that's in the SQL Server data warehouse. These solutions are also, we're currently in the market for a portal, which we've decided to go with DataTell's product, which uses SharePoint and their APIs that are brought into there. And so that's like the future, that they realize that they have to be able to get their information visible on the net. And so this is, they've sort of seen the light. Okay, the next project, how to turn an email account into a plain paper fax machine. This is actually our dot matrix printer. We actually still have a dot matrix printer. This is the only printer we actually pay maintenance on to IBM for. And for some reason, they want, the admissions office wants to have dot matrix mailing labels, and there's no convincing that Avery is going to do it for them, so we're still using this. But the problem we wanted to solve was a problem with financial aid. Financial aid runs the Federal Work Study Program for our students, and of course they have reasonable administrative needs. Like they expect students to hand in timesheets just so they can get paid, and we came up with a whole system to make sure that an online system so they can take care of that, take care of registering the time, certifying that they actually showed up and everything. The one thing that we couldn't do on the website was that we couldn't get their managers, the supervisors, to on the online system, because one, we can barely get the supervisors to begin with to sign the actual paper timesheets, and two, we didn't have any way to get them to convince them to get accounts on our network to electronically sign the timesheets.
And I might add that these jobs are very fluid. They change so quickly. It would take somebody to coordinate with every new hire. Here, go learn our system, and we just didn't want to tackle that. We just didn't think it was worth it at the time to tackle that part of it.
Yeah. So what our students do is they go through the electronic system, they file a timesheet, and then they have to print it out and bring it to the supervisor, and they still got to sign, and the supervisor still has to sign it. Then what happens to the paper? Most of these people during the summer are not on campus. Some of them are not even in the same city. So they generally fax those faxes. But we have in order for them to get paid, they have to hand in the timesheet. So pretty much they have a 24-hour window that they have, less than a 24-hour window for them to get the supervisor to sign the timesheet and fax it to the financial aid office so that they can get paid. So what would happen is that every Thursday between about 4 and 5 o'clock, the phone would be off the hook. Everybody would be trying to, we have 300, during the summer we have about 300 people with work study jobs. Everybody, it's practically physically impossible to try to fax 300 pages in a 1 hour time span. A fax server really wouldn't be a solution. There's no, it's like we have to bring in a T1 line just for this, and we probably still wouldn't be enough to solve the problem, to get everybody's timesheets in within that time span. So instead of spending $2,000 or $3,000 to solve that, we decided to spend $20 a month by signing up with eFax. eFax is a service where you pay them a monthly fee, which is approximately $20 a month, and they provide you a phone number in the area code that you want, and people fax to that number, and it goes. Those things get scanned and then sent as an attachment in email, and it goes to whoever you designate. So, but that by itself wasn't enough. They have a proprietary. It comes with a proprietary format called EFX, which is basically a glorified TIFF file, but it's very difficult to work with. But thankfully, there is a setting. I'm going to switch back over here. There is a setting in eFax. This is my personal number. This is not the financial aid number, so you're not going to be, it's not their number. But they do allow you to switch it from eFax format to PDF format. And PDF format actually is a lot easier to deal with in a Red Hat Linux environment, which is what we use, in our backend for most of our servers right now. So what you would do is you would set it to PDF, and then have it go to one of our emails in a Red Hat server, and then using two other open source packages like Procmail, which is some of you may be familiar with that. They allow you to process an email either into a particular inbox in a particular folder, or allows you to call another program and process the email as if it was input into that program. And then we use the second package called munpack, which is part of which basically is a command line program that allows you to take in an email and dump out all of the attachments into individual files. This is all the code that we did for the Procmail. We have a couple more lines where we do logging, but pretty much this is it. What it does, it unpacks the attachment from the email and sends it to the laser printer that's in the financial aid office, which is the second line over here. The second line over here. In case something goes wrong, you check to see if something goes wrong. If something goes wrong, it leaves a copy of the PDF in a directory in that account that we have, and then if we can go back in there and reprint the PDF. In addition, if that fails or something else goes wrong, you can go back to the eFax account and look at the queue at the eFax account itself online and reprint or resend or reprint any of the faxes that didn't work out for you. So it's faster and better quality than any plain paper fax. It's basically, your laser printer, your general laser printer is better than anything that has multifunction thing you can get from HP. And if you run out of paper or something, the Linux queue holds on to those extra pages until you can get paper in there or you solve the problem. And like I said before, you have multiple ways of getting back to those faxes in the event that something goes wrong. And to this day, we're still using it. We have 300 students every week sending in the timesheets, and we still haven't figured a way to get the supervisors to do e-signatures. So this is pretty much the most efficient solution we have at this point. Okay. So how to turn a windowsill into an internet connection? Now. During 9/11, well, we obviously live in New York. We're from New York, and during 9/11, we're pretty much across the river from Ground Zero. So we were probably among we weren't in the impact area, and we were across the river from them. But there's a lot of things that go through Manhattan that we depend on, especially our telephone service. Internet connectivity through the points of presence in Manhattan, and after the attack, our internet connection went through the Verizon building, which was on the perimeter of Ground Zero, and which just suffered a lot of damage. Okay, and so their priority was really to try to get phone service, emergency phone service back up, to get the financial markets going again. Some law school out in Brooklyn was not exactly really high up on the priority list compared against those things. So we had very little phone service, and we had no internet access to it with our regular point of presence for a whole month. So we had to do something. And so something that happened was I live around the block from the law school administrative building, and my DSL actually was still working because it was still going through Verizon. So we actually had a line of sight between my bedroom window and the IT office. So we took two of these boxes. This is one of the actual boxes. We kept one of the actual boxes that we used. We stuck that out of we hooked it up with a. We went to Best Buy. We got PCMIA cards because we only had the only cards we had at hand, wireless cards at hand, were ones for laptops. So we went to Best Buy. We got MCIA cards for these computers. We swapped in the wireless. Wireless on Linux was like pretty much a task to try to pull off in 2001. But we got it to work, and it wasn't particularly fast. On a good day, my DSL was going at maybe 2 megabits at top. And a good day, closer to 500 megabits.
And of course, that's down. They're asynchronous, and up is a different problem.
Right.
And so we knew this would be okay for users, but we also knew it wouldn't be okay for servers. So we still had to do something.
Yeah. So we tried to do some things. We set up quality of service, which also kind of was like sort of not ready for prime time in 2001 either in the Linux kernel, but like it's what we had, so we used that. We put up a squid proxy in front of it to prevent the students who didn't quite get the fact that this was going through my bedroom and
and Hotmail wasn't a priority for us,
And so we used Squid to try to minimize as much traffic as possible from going through the link. We tried to ask for some favors from certain online database providers that we will leave unnamed. And they initially said they would help us out, but then they said we take that back.
They were worried the students would hack into their system.
So we had an internet connection, but we didn't have any servers. Like my DSL line doesn't have like our IP address, and we didn't have a DNS server outside that was working. So we had to do something. So that goes on to our last project. Over there on the left is my window. On the right is the IT office window. And it's pretty much literally that far away from each other.
When Francis is late for work, I just yell out the window.
Working from home, Phil.
In fact, before we had the wireless ready, we just had paper cups with a string between them.
So we still also had to deal with our modem pool. We host it. Actually, to this day, we don't advertise it, but we still actually have a modem pool. But of course, that was down because we didn't have our own internet access. So for that time period, we contracted with AT&T to use their modem pool so people could dial into the internet from home. Okay, and then so we went up to our last project. We had the internet, but we didn't have any servers that anybody could see. It's like we had I had like a web account out in San Francisco, and we were using that I had as a hobby. Like I had a shell account out there, and we actually used that for about 3 weeks as our emergency school website. But we didn't have, that didn't really cut it, and we still had to get email servers out there. We had to get our web server out. We needed to get it to our point of presence, which had finally gotten up by this point.
Yeah, and of course, you have to get it to your point of presence because the reverse DNS just doesn't work when you drop your servers on somebody. There's tons of places you could put a server in New York City, but only one for us would matter, and that's our provider.
So we had to get those servers to the point of presence. So it wasn't these servers. These servers are much newer than the ones we had at that time, but they pretty much weighed us about that, those dimensions. And the problem is that our point of presence was inside the security zone around the World Trade Center. It's sort of extended south of Canal Street was pretty much the area where you needed to have provide some kind of reason to the police why you were there. And you couldn't drive there. You only could drive there if you had a commercial vehicle and you could prove that you had a business inside the zone. So what we did was we plowed the servers into Phil's Buick, and then we had to travel on foot from there to the point of presence. You want to talk about your?
Yeah, I've been in New York as the new CIO for
2 months.
2 months. I
was like
didn't have
2
a whole
months.
lot of New York connections to fall back on at the time, and so we were really scratching our heads on what to do. And the school doesn't even own a single vehicle that has its name on it. And so what do? We drove as close as we could get to it, and then we just put them under our arms, and we walked.
Yeah.
And so on the map, when we drove and we got coming
first-
up through Chinatown.
Yeah. Well, first of all, our war school is down there. There's that red splotch in the bottom of the map. And I guess apparently on window on Office 2007 they have like Madden Vision. So here's the war school. We had to go over the Brooklyn Bridge into Chinatown. And then this was as far as we were allowed to go.
Yeah, and I think the reason Francis turned to me was because while we were in Chinatown in my Buick, they were mashing all the traffic down to one lane, from like 3 lanes. It was mayhem still down there, and my car got squeezed by this big truck. I had this big gash in the side of my car. I knew there was no stopping because the police wouldn't have cared that I got in an accident. They had bigger fish to fry, obviously, and so there was nothing I could do but grumble about the big gash in the side of my car. We just kept driving until we got to that point where Francis.
Right. The point B over here was it's a big supermarket called Pathmark that's in Chinatown. They have a relatively big parking lot for there's one of the few supermarkets in Manhattan that have a parking lot, which is kind of a big deal. And so the police had set up a security checkpoint in front of the supermarket, and basically anybody that couldn't drive into the security zone had to leave their vehicle at the Pathmark. And so we had those servers you saw in the previous picture. We had to walk from B all across the East River, along the FDR Drive, underneath the FDR Drive, from here to the seaport, and then from the seaport we had to walk from there into the middle of downtown.
And show them where the World Trade Center towers were.
The World Trade Center was over here, and we had to get here.
And so the distance, the walking distance was 1.5 miles,
Yeah.
And we each had a rack server kind of under each arm, waddling as far as we could until it's time to stop. We got to stop. We'd rest for a few minutes, and then we'd do it some more. And it took us all afternoon to get our servers. Nobody noticed they were down.
So, number one, remember to bring hand carts.
MacGyver never carried a hand cart. We didn't think we needed to.
But that episode was really kind of sort of driven the things that our thoughts afterwards, about having offsite servers and servers available offsite. Recently we've tried out different virtual hosted server solutions. We tried one with Panix. We tried another one with Bod hosts in Chicago because the one that's in Panix is great. They're fantastic, but they're based in Manhattan. So people felt that it wasn't far enough away. So we picked a similar vendor out in Chicago called Bod hosts that's doing the same sort of thing. We were really excited about some of the stuff that was talked about earlier about Amazon's EC2. That's probably really going to be the future of. I anticipate in the next 5 or 10 years, you may have 2 or 3 servers on site, and the rest of your stuff is going to be in some magical black box, and hopefully not someplace that's being flooded right now. And we still feel the effects of Ground Zero today. The Ground Zero, the World Trade Center site is still being constructed. They've only recently put in the foundations for the Freedom Tower this year, and hopefully they can totally rebuild by 2012. I think is the latest estimate of how long it would take to rebuild that area. Okay. So what do we take away from this? It's like that being a MacGyver type of person is not necessarily not as really a substitute for long-term planning. It's like it'll get you through to solve discrete problems, but you still have to follow up afterwards and reevaluate whether or not the thing still work, it's still useful today, and what can we do to avoid a do or die type of situation where the countdown clock is going down to 0, and you have to like find the right combination of paper clips to defuse the bomb.
And I might add on that point that a quote unquote MacGyver solution is never as complete as a pre-designed outsourced solution. It's something to get you from point A to point B temporarily. And that means you always have to keep your eye out for either a permanent solution or a vendor's solution or something. Where MacGyver stuff really seems to make sense to us is in this little sweet spot. If you drew an XY graph, and on the vertical axis you put outsourced already, everybody knows how to do it, and on the other end you put rocket science, somewhere in between there's this little piece where the vendors haven't quite come up with all the parts to make it happen yet, but you happen to know, or your staff, and if you're creative and if you work together well, you depend on each other, you can figure out little pieces, often open source pieces. Today we think of them as kind of mashup type of stuff. You can figure out little pieces that you can hook together to get you from point A to point B, and that's an incredibly valuable skill. You don't want your law school to depend on it for every project. You have to pick and choose those projects. You have to solve the right problems. And the other axis of the graph would be expense. And both by expense, I mean not only money but time. If it's very inexpensive, of course you're going to lean toward doing it. If it looks expensive, there's some risk in every one of these projects. You got to calculate the cost against the risk of failure.
But I think it's important. We think it's important to actually provide this environment for improvisation. I think you can have a certain type of people that they do exactly what's in their job description. They clock in, they clock out, and they get things done. Or you can have people that do that, but when something is not exactly in the job description, but you got it, it has to be done. I think that provides that moment where you provide that place where people can improvise. It provides an environment that where people can see that they have the effects of what they're doing, that what they're doing has something that's really meaningful. It's the ultimate call to action to your staff to work together, to bond, and provide that shared experience. MacGyver, I think, MacGyver in all of his episodes, not just did all these, fantastic feats but they also had episodes where he showed where he cared for people. He had concern with people. He felt that he was cared for by the people that were mentoring him along his path through the series, and that environment really helps to grow motivated people that are motivated, people that really believe in what they're doing.
And I might just jump in and say that Francis is really a MacGyver for me. I've appreciated what he's done for me over the years and the tools he's brought. And I think it has inspired other people in our department to kind of think a little bit outside the box about, all right, what tools are there available? And I don't have to do everything just this way. I can think about these other ways before I jump in. And sometimes you do them the other ways, and more often than not you don't. You go with more of a standardized solution. And as time goes by, the kinds of projects to which a MacGyver solution can be subjected are going to change. These all look old now. And the new projects are all going to be related to the network somehow, out there on the net. But that same kind of thinking I think still applies. You've got to think outside the box about what all the little tools are out there and how do I combine them to come up with something new and bigger and better that benefits my school. And that's really, I think, the challenge of the future.
And to piggyback on that also is like that, Phil has been my mentor in many of the things that occur at school, and I try to do the same thing for my staff, and that's what motivates me to care about what they about how they grow in what they do, and not just within the stated job description, but how that they can grow within their different the different areas. So
that's pretty much it. Any questions or comments?
I just wanted to know how you got through an entire MacGyver segment without using duct tape.
Well, we have pictures of duct tape.
It happens to be gaffer tape, which we use a lot in school.
Right.
But
If you, the PowerPoint's on the website, the sites for all the stuff that we quoted are on this slide. We have to thank Luke Peterson, who takes care of our AV stuff as our MacGyver stand-in, so that we wouldn't go outside of our fair use. And no servers were injured in this presentation. Anybody have any other questions?
I have a comment.
Sure.
I'm really sorry you guys went through so much stress. It's commendable that you guys survived it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.